Hello, Smith Transport. Welcome. Today we're going to be reviewing our tractor protection system. This system is very important. This tractor protection system is actually a tractor protection valve and a trailer protection valve. They work in tandem with each other to allow us to be able to have an air supply to our tractor in the event your trailer somehow drops off the back of you, or we have a catastrophic failure on our airlines. Now, what we want to do is we want to test our system. We're going to do a simple test, though, 3 steps. This is what DOT actually uses pretty much for their standard test. Each time we have an inspection, just a roadside inspection, or if you're pulled in, you know, they go through a more complete inspection, but this is one that I've had done in both situations. The very first thing we want to do, though, is we want to make sure that our tractor is not going to move on us, because we have to actually release both of our brakes to do this test, to run this test. And what I do is I've got a fairly cheap way of doing it. I use these wood blocks. I think I got these from an old DuPont load. All you need is you can use rock, you can use a piece of lumber. Just make sure that you've got something you put in place. It doesn't have to be a fancy tire chalk that you see at the shippers. It can be something that just is going to prevent your trailer or your tractor and your trailer from rolling forward or backwards. Say you want to chalk both front and rear. And we'll have a visual of that in just a couple minutes. Let's go ahead, and I want to help you understand the way this system operates. It's kind of like a light switch. The light switch doesn't actually turn the power on or off. A light switch controls the flow of the power to the light. And when you turn that on or off, it either allows it to flow or restricts the flow. The same thing with our air supply on our tractor. These protection valves allow us to be able to have air in the event of an emergency. Okay? The best way to run this test is simply by allowing your truck to charge up, let your compressor run. Right now we've got about 126 psi on both our primary and secondary tanks. We have 2 tanks that operate on these commercial vehicles. The truck's charged, and what we're going to do is we're first going to make sure that our system doesn't have any leaks. And the way we're going to do this, I'm going to go ahead and turn the truck off, and I'm going to release the parking brake, which is your tractor parking brake. I'm going to go ahead and cycle the key back on, because we're going to actually listen for a audio and a visual. Now, this test only takes a minute, but what we'll do during that minute is we're going to take and apply pressure to our brake pedal, and there may be a release of air briefly. Right now I've got 112 pounds of pressure. You don't want to drop more than 4 pounds of pressure in 1 minute. We're going to give it just a couple minutes. In the meantime, it is holding pressure pretty good right now. Remember that even something as simple as your air horn, that operates off of your air system. Your transmission operates off the air system. There are a lot of components in your truck that operate off your air system. There are a lot of areas that can have issue and may cause problems maintaining that air pressure that's vital to your braking system. So that's the reason why we want to run this test and make sure that we have a system that is not leaking. Right now we're looking good. The next step, part 2, we're going to go ahead and drop our pressure on our air tanks down to 60 psi. We're going to pump the air brake and make sure that during that period our visual and our audio are actually enabled. Bumping it down. Right there, we've got one audio, another audio. We've got our visual. We're looking good, 64. We have no leaks, okay? Now we can let the compressor run right now or inspect for leaks. You can get out, walk around the truck and listen, okay? It's very important to do this. Since we're okay with no leaks right now, we're gonna go ahead and continue to step number 3, which is gonna allow us to be able to activate our brakes, making sure that this tractor protection system is working properly. Okay, the first step in part number 3 of your tractor protection system test is making sure that we have our tractor protection valve and our trailer protection valve working properly. The way we're going to do this is by dropping our air pressure down between 20 and 45 pounds. Now, it may kick on before then. If it does, then that's good. That means it's operating properly. We're going to run it down now. We should get our trailer valve popped out here in a second. There's our trailer. Did you hear it kick on? Now we're going to go down to our tractor. Down to 36. Good. We had that right at, on our secondary tank, 2431. On our primary tank, it's where it needs to be. Those popped out. That means that your tractor protection system is working properly. And that'll do that for the inside of our truck. Now we're going to go outside and take a look at our visual for our tire chocks. Let me know when. So whenever you're running a tractor protection system test, you want to make sure that your tires are chalked properly to make sure that that tractor and trailer don't roll either forward or backward. This is what we have down here, just something simple. Just a standard wood chalk. Keeps that tractor from going anywhere while you're running the test. Real simple and basic. What I want to do right now, though, it's very important whenever you're running a brake test, is to check your ABS system. Make sure that it's operational. One thing I want to do is first, whenever I do a test, I'll check my inspection sticker to make sure that we're in compliance. Heartland wants us to do these trailer inspections at least every 90 days. It's important to make sure that we're up to date. If you're near a terminal, if you're at a terminal, go ahead and get it done. If not, we'll try to get that trailer in as soon as possible. If it's out of inspection, you're going to need to get it done right away. You need to notify ERS, and they will actually put you in the location to get that done. Now, what I want to do is I want to turn on my ignition. I'm going to walk back here. I'm going to plug my pigtail in, and I'm going to look for a visual. I can see my ABS light come on and then go back off again. Another thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that all my lights are working properly. A real neat feature on it that allows us to be able to activate a lamp test, and that lets us go all the way around the trailer to make sure, tractor and trailer, to make sure that everything's working properly. I'm going to take a walk back here. It's important to note that a DOT requirement is that that ABS light has a clear ABS marking on it. If it doesn't have a sticker or doesn't have anything showing that it's an ABS, then you're going to have to make sure during your next trailer inspection, make sure we get that done. We're taking a look at all of our lights. We'll look down the side of the trailer, make sure that all of our four-way lights are working. Make sure that checks our turn signals, make sure our turn signals are working properly. We're also going to be able to see if our brakes are working properly simply by looking at these two inner lights on this trailer. Trailers vary. You're going to see a few different ones. There they are. We know our brake lights are working, very important. That isn't just where they're lit for a marker light. You have to actually have your brake lights working. It's very important. We'll look up and we'll scan and make sure that our clearance lights are working. Scan down the side of your trailer, make sure that we have our side marker, tail marker make sure that our signals are working. And typically I can see on a trailer whether the nose is or not, but you can always walk around that during your pre-trip, make sure that's working properly also. Now what we're going to do, we're going to actually do a visual inspection of our brakes. This is important. A lot of y'all don't want to get up underneath the trailer. It's cold and rainy, and it might be one of them nasty parking lots where there's people do stuff out there, you know. And you don't want to get in it, but sometimes you got to. You got to climb up underneath that trailer. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to climb up underneath here. I'm going to take a look at my slack adjusters. I'm going to make sure that they're not in pieces. This is your slack adjuster. Make sure that it's working. Make sure that, you know, you can usually see some lube on it. You'll be able to tell if it's, you know, got some bad corrosion. You can see your brake chambers. You get a better visual up front. We're going to look, make sure that our leaf springs aren't cracked or broken. You'd be surprised how often drivers don't check any of that, and then they're going to be in trouble down the road. We're also listening to hear for any air leaks coming off these hubs. These are the auto inflate hubs. A lot of times you may have one with a little bit of a bleed on it. You'll hear it whistling. DOT don't want to hear that. Make sure that those are working properly. We're going to climb up underneath there. We're going to look at our brake drums. We're going to do a visual on our brake pads. There's a wear indicator line on these brake pads. These brake pads have to have at least 1/4 of an inch available for use. Now, it might be beveled a little bit on the edge. We want to make sure that above the indicator line is at least 1/4 of an inch. These look pretty good right now. Look like we got some good brake chambers. Sometimes these brake chambers get corroded. Your air tank will get some corrosion on it. You can listen for leaks here, and it doesn't take but a minute. We'll run a visual down the side of our trailer. One thing I always like to do too, you'll always see me crawl up underneath the trailer to check to make sure the kingpin is actually in that fifth wheel and locked. It's important to do this. Normally I have a flashlight. I know it's connected today. I've already done it, but I will literally swing my body in and I'll get a visual to make sure that kingpin's locked. All right, folks. Basic tools you should have on board your truck. If you don't, get them. I always like to have a good set of jumper cables. You can get them at Tractor Supply. 12-foot, heavy gauge. You never can tell when you might need a jump. Airline. Make sure you keep one of these on board. I've had to inflate tires over the years. You're at a customer, you show up, you got to get moving. You got a low tire, air the son of a gun up and get moving till you can get somewhere where you can either get a repair done or get a replacement. Socket set. Small socket set. They aren't very expensive. Keep one on board. Multi-purpose. We use them for all kinds of different things. A lot of times mud flaps, maybe breaking some bolts loose. In that case, I carry crescent wrenches, but I also carry vice grips. These are vital. If you don't have a pair of vice grips in your truck, get them. I'm going to show you something here in a minute. Mini sledge. Popping those pins. Sometimes we have to pop those pins on those trailers. They're a little bit tight. We're going to try to avoid doing that, but the mini sledge comes in handy. Pry bar. This is my favorite. This guy's been through a lot of use. 20 years. He's pulled nails, lifted doors, done all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I kept moving that way. Don't discard an old wiper blade. These things are important. I've had wipers come apart out on the road in the middle of the night, rainstorm, side of the mountain. Well, I got a spare. It's going to get me through the night. Wire cutters. You might have to make a simple repair on a light. It's good to have a set of wire pliers. I also carry a couple different connectors and wire nuts and electrical tape, just in case I have to make that quick repair to keep me moving. Cable cutters. Now, you get to a customer a lot of times, you have that cable on the back of it. They'll look at you and you'll look at them. Well, you need to cut them. Well, you're either going to be out there with your bolt cutters trying to yank it off, or these cut like butter. Screwdrivers. Everybody needs screwdrivers. Flatheads for prying sometimes, not just for using on a screw head. and get yourself a Phillips head or some Torx. It's good to have several different kinds. Bolt cutters, very important. A lot of customers go to, you might have a bolt seal. Do you need a set of bolt cutters? Well, the big ones were nice. If they don't have them, I got my bolt cutters. Your flashlight. Make sure you always carry a flashlight. Flashlight is your best friend. Flashlight helps you see things, especially at night. Now, I said vice grips can be your best friend, especially when you're adjusting tandem sometimes. These pins can stick. A lot of times you'll pull the handle out and they'll want to slide back, and it's not going to actually hold those pins in place. Where you can take your vice grips, slide them up, it locks it in place. That way you don't have to have a helping hand out there in the middle of the night. You know how that is. Middle of nowhere, nobody but you and your vice grips. This is going to allow you to be able to pull those pins out and be able to adjust those tandems. All right, Smith. We're going to actually take a look at our auto start system and the idle air system on these Peterbilt 579s. It's important to understand that it's simple, okay? All you have to do to enable this system is to take your auto switch once you've turned your ignition off and hold that switch up. It'll do a countdown, 3, 2, 1, audible sound. Reach back here, hit that button, your auto air system comes on. This auto air system runs the air conditioning system in your truck. You can lower the temperature on this system simply by pushing the down button, and it will take that all the way down. Let's say it's showing 60 right now. I'll probably adjust it back up a little bit later, but every time your truck senses that it's below that temperature, it's going to kick on. It's important to also remember, when you've enabled this system, don't get in and out of your truck, or else you're going to have your horn going off, okay? It's a safety feature. It's built in case you pull your hood, get underneath your hood, and it's warning you that your truck's about to start. You don't want to be under the hood when the engine fires up, all right? It's also notable that the lamp will stay on even if you turn the truck on, okay, which will shut the system down. But that right there, that light will stay on. That doesn't mean the system's going to continuously work 24 hours a day. You hear that? That's the audible because my door's actually open. I just noticed that. It's not this side. Oh, it's the side that Jennifer got in on. Now it's shut, but because that door was right, but because that door was ajar, that means I got to start the system all over again if I don't want to hear that audible. But at least you got to see the audible, and that's important. Notice the truck fired up on its own. It'll keep everything charged up while you're out here on the road. You want to make sure you enable that system also when you go on home time, okay? Just make sure you kick that thing on. Make sure you turn your refrigerator off. Turn your refrigerator off. That has a big drain on batteries. Make sure you turn that off and turn off your power system in your truck. Turn off anything that might be draining any type of power. It puts a lot of strain on the batteries. I know you may say, well, that's what the system's supposed to do. Well, no, it's still going to drain your batteries down over a period of time, okay? Doesn't matter, you know, even if you got these great systems in place nowadays, you know, you're still going to have issue if you don't follow this protocol, okay? Thank you very much. One thing to remember when you're operating your auto start system is that you can't roll down your windows. You can't operate your windshield wipers. You can't use any of the normal functions that you would when your truck is idling, okay? What it's done is it's gone into a mode where it's just operating certain systems, okay? So just keep that in mind, that if you go to try to roll your window down while the system's running, you aren't going to roll your window down, all right? Only when you're idling. And under 81 degrees, the truck's auto idle will shut off. So if you don't have that, well, not auto idle, the actual idle system will shut off. You need to make sure that if you're going to be in your truck, you want to have a little comfortable air at night, make sure you have your system enabled. And don't open up the doors. Thank you. Now I want to explain a few things to y'all that may not understand, some of us old guys, like I'm really that old, I ain't that old. CB radios? Y'all don't think you need a CB radio, right? Well, y'all too. These things are important. You know how many times that saved my butt out here on the road, especially during the winter months? You aren't getting a heads up from anybody else except for other drivers that are out here on the road that have a CB radio. And wouldn't you like to be the one that's actually alerting others? That would be helpful, wouldn't it? That CB radio saved a little old lady one time that was driving down the Kentucky Pike. I just happened to be coming from the opposite direction. She was in the wrong lane, coming at me head on. If I hadn't been alerted before I got around the bend that there was a car coming down the wrong way, then I probably would have killed her. It's very important to remember that these aren't just for looks. They aren't for fun. Although I guess you could have some fun. It's not as much fun as it used to be, but it's important. I'm going to throw this in here too. GMSR radio, get you one. When the power went down with AT&T, they had some issues back during the winter. Well, communication is important. Your CB is going to work, but these things, you can broadcast up to a mile, mile and a half. Get your license, get you one. We have these at the house. We run tests each month in our neighborhood. It's very important to have communication in the event of disaster.